5 people who gave me trouble in life. By Krishna's mercy. Vipada santuta shashvat tatra tatra jagadguro bhavato darshanam yat syad apunar bhavadarshanam. Quote, I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again, for seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated births and deaths. Queen Kunti speaking to Lord Krishna, Shrimad Bhagavatam 1:25.
1. My father. Let me tell you, my dad was a handful. He was so stubborn in his ways. He was really difficult to deal with, especially towards the end. But I still miss him. I would gladly take that trouble again, just to have his association. He really did love all of us. 2. My mother. Words cannot express the impact that a mother can have. I have no idea why people chase after climbing the corporate ladder, when simply by becoming a parent, you turn into this amazing celebrity. Think about it. Have you ever paid attention to the way most children speak about their parents? It is like they are describing the most important person in the world. My mom was that to me, even through all the difficulties. Some of her nonsense was too much to tolerate at times, but I would certainly do it all over again. 3. My teacher. I really hated that teacher. I am not going to lie. I dreaded sitting down in their classroom, but I learned so much, I have to admit. I would not be where I am today were it not for that experience. I would do it all over again if I had to. 4. My friend. Sometimes I just want to strangle them, their pettiness, their needless jealousy. Shouldn't they be wishing me well? I don't get it. I never want to speak to them again, but that really is not true. I am glad they are my friend. At least they are there. At least they pick up the phone when I call. 5. My colleague. I sat next to that person for almost a decade. Then one day, just like that, they are gone. They leave for another job. The same time during the day is spent with different people. This means that we don't keep in touch. They were difficult to deal with at times, but I learned so much from them. I would gladly relive the experience if given the choice.
Upon realizing the imminent nature of the departure of Sri Krishna, Kunti Devi recalls the many calamities that her family faced. The separation from Krishna sparked the retrospective not due to fault, blame, or causation. Rather, it was through those calamities that the grace of Krishna was steady. His presence, his guidance, his assurances, these were available to the Pandavas, who otherwise had no hope. The historical narrative of that family, kindly documented in the Sanskrit work of epic length known as the Mahabharata, nicely symbolizes the struggle of the living being. That struggle is also a constant, from beginning to end. The beginning is life inside of the womb of the mother. No chance at freedom, limited movement, forced restriction on the range of motion. The living being is completely helpless in that state. When they emerge from the womb, they supposedly have more options, but just see how much they must depend on other factors merely for survival. How long until the child can travel to school on their own? Perhaps at 5 years of age, but then there are dangers lurking around every corner. Upon reaching adulthood, there are the troubles from society, from corrupt leaders, from a medical establishment overtaken by greed at the expense of science, and from friends and well-wishers who go along with the farce. All the while, they insist upon conformity. You must fall in line with their ever-changing orthodoxy, lest you be left all alone to fend for yourself in this cold and harsh world. Kunti Devi had to suffer through one embarrassment after another. Several times it looked as if the end was near. Somehow, it was her family which endured the struggles, while the villains were eventually vanquished. That devoted mother understood that it was only because of Krishna that they survived. More importantly, it was during those calamities that they felt closer to Krishna. They had nowhere else to turn. It was like they were living the principle of bhagavad-gita that explains the actual cause to results. The living being is not the doer. They must rely on the cooperation of prakriti, which is material nature. Prakriteha kriyamanani, gunaiha karmani sarvashah, ahankar vimudhatma, kartaham iti manyate. Quote, the bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the doer of activities, which are in actuality carried out by nature. Lord Krishna, Bhagavad-gita 3:27. Krishna controls that very nature, and so he can lift someone out of despair, darkness, and danger. Meanwhile, someone who thinks they have made it on their own, that there is no one to prevent them from encroaching upon the rightful property of others, eventually comes crashing down. They get the harshest of reality checks, delivered at the appropriate moment, in the way described by Sri Rama to Kara. Avashyam labhate jantu phalam papasya karmanah, ghoram paryagate kale drumah pushpamivartavam. Quote, just as a tree starts to blossom during the proper season, so the doer of sinful deeds inevitably reaps the horrible fruit of their actions at the appropriate time. Lord Rama speaking to Khara, Valmiki Ramayana, Aranya-kand 29.8. We see in the above-reviewed situations that in spite of someone causing us torment and grief, we might still long for their association. This is due to the attachment. This might also be due to intelligence. We acknowledge the impact such a person had on us. Though we may not have enjoyed the difficulties created, we still appreciate the time spent with them. We sometimes long to return to the days of trouble, for at least during those times we had the association of that person. This is one way to turn around the generally inauspicious conditions of the material world. This place represents but a spark of the splendor of Krishna. It is his vibhuti, or potency, and the diluting factor creates duality. A single situation might be taken as favorable, unfavorable, joyous, or the source of torment. The duality is due to the delusion, which is really the vibhuti at work. Yadyad vibhutimat sattvam shrimadurjitmeva va tatta devavagachatvam mam tejosha sambhavam. Quote, know that all beautiful, glorious, and mighty creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. Lord Krishna, Bhagavad-gita 10:41. If we remember Krishna through the conditions, through the steady changes, through the ups and the downs, then we can be like Kunti Devi, always connected, always remembering the Supreme Lord, not afraid of a return to even the worst times, since we will ultimately be able to remember transcendence and stay on track towards reaching the supreme destination. In closing, to that time moving back, where under constant attack, facing danger grave, but one person to save. Krishna steady in that connection, helpless turning in his direction. So whether rising high or low falling, always upon his mercy calling.